Good afternoon. My name is W.D. Foster Graham. I will be your host today for the Conversation with Al McFarlane, where we discuss everything from the African and African American diaspora. This is Black History Month, so on Thursdays, we share books and books chats because we are those wordsmiths, a phrase that was coined by Al himself. We also will be talking about upcoming events as well. And to all of you who are out there, for our subscribers, we have surpassed 500 subscribers and we're shooting for 1,000. So we encourage you to like, share, and subscribe our show. Now, our guest today, our guest author, is James Estwick. And he is an up-and-coming writer living here in the Twin Cities for almost 17 years, but he hails from Omaha, Nebraska. And as an avid reader, writing his own stories was a natural progression. As far back as he remembers, writing has been an escape, a way to explore the many ideas that grew in his imagination. Now, as James has grown, he feels like writing has transitioned to the reflection of the world that he is living in. No matter what form his writing takes, it has always provided James with the chance to release emotions that were hard for him to verbally express. Now, he has an excellent collection of poetry for spoken word, which is named Coffee. And that being said, it is my great pleasure to introduce James Estwick.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, James. How's the day today?
Not too bad. It's a little gloomy, but it's not bad.
Hey, well, I'm coming from here from Minneapolis. We know that the weather's unpredictable. That's it. So, James, would you kind of share a little bit for our viewers about growing up in Omaha?
Okay, so I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. I come from a pretty big family. I always felt different from my siblings. I was kind of a nerd. Doesn't bother me much now, but back in the day it did. Writing, like I said, has always been something I've enjoyed, as well as reading. I think one of the first things I remember reading is a poem by Langston Hughes, and it's something that I remember to this day. It's probably one of my mantras. I say it every day just because it makes me happy. It keeps me going, keeps me remembering that we all have dreams, and if we lose those dreams, what else do we have?
Well, that is true. So, did you become best friends at the public library? Because I know I did when I was little, and I was writing.
I remember being younger and my parents taking us to the library on Saturdays. I think that's where I first read that Langston Hughes book. I think I ended up stealing it from the library. Don't tell anybody. I kept it. I had it for a long time and I lost it, and I ended up getting it a few years ago for a birthday present. But yeah, the public library and the school library were always some of my best friends.
Yeah, well, we learned that as far as being a great writer or a poet, it also means being a great reader. Now, you mentioned Langston Hughes in terms of an inspiration. Were there any other books or authors that inspired you?
I mean, I loved all of the R.L. Stine Goosebumps books. Those are always fun books. But those are probably the ones I read the most, like the Goosebumps or some Langston Hughes.
Hey, so what is it about those books that really just drew you in or kept you engaged?
I just like the poetry, and then reading about, during the Harlem Renaissance and just the different way Langston Hughes would weave stories. And with R.L. Stine, they were kind of like horror books, and I like scary stuff. So they always kind of drew me to them.
I know about the Harlem Renaissance. You think about Countee Cullen, Langston Hughes, Bruce Nugent, and all of the above. Now, when talking about your collection, since you are a person that is drawn to spoken word, how did you come up with the title of your book?
So Coffee is the anchor poem in my book. It's a poem about my grandfather and my relationship with my grandfather growing up. Um, it was something that I shared with him. And then I feel like you have reflections with people, and usually you do this over coffee or like
Mhm.
catching up with someone. I felt like it was a good way to introduce the anchor poem, but also introduce like a reflection, kind of sitting back, drinking coffee and reflecting on certain points in my life.
I see. So tell me more about him, since he is obviously very significant inspiration here.
Um, so I don't know. Like I said, I had a lot of siblings, so being at my grandparents' house, feeling like that I got extra attention was always nice. But it was something about being at my grandfather's, and like he had a chicken coop in the back, huge garden on the side of his house, and I mean it wasn't, thinking about it in retrospect, wasn't really fun, but I don't know. I just like the company and I like being there.
Yeah, and grandparents definitely make a difference. Um, for Omaha itself, what do you see so far as when you were growing up and how the city has changed? Because our memories of when we were little, they change over time. What do you see?
I feel like it's definitely grown a lot. I haven't been back in about a year, but it just feels different. It feels a little bigger going back now. Like I feel like there's more to do, more to see. I feel like I'm there and I don't get to see a lot of the people that I want to get back to see, but it's always because I'm trying to do something new there.
True. And I remember going to Omaha back in 1975, and I guess one of the main drag was 24th Street into the community. Can you tell us something about the community in Omaha?
Oh, I feel like 24th Street still is sort of a staple. If you're from Omaha, like I said, I haven't been there in a while, so I feel like I don't remember very much. And I was 18 when I left, and I feel like I didn't do very much there. But I do feel like 24th Street still kind of is a staple. When someone's from Omaha, that's one of the main places they'll say that they remember.
That is true because I remember it when I was there, definitely. Um, in terms of time, what kind of time frame did it take to write Coffee?
Coffee was kind of a collection of poems that I had already had written probably for a few years. The idea came about. I had a friend who knew someone that was having an art exhibit at the Bakken Museum in Uptown, and they were accepting written work. And I had this whole idea of 6 different pieces of writing and how they connected to me, because that was the name of the theme of the show, Connections. And so I came up with this idea and I was ready to submit it. And then I reread the directions and it said that you could only pick one poem. And so I submitted Coffee, and that was the one, because that was the one I felt the most, like the strongest about. So I felt like I'll submit that. And it got accepted, and it was there from April until July of 2022.
Hmm.
And then from maybe February when I applied until April when the show started, I just kind of brainstormed on what else I could do with the other work that I had, because I felt like I was in a place that I wanted to share. And so I just started piecing them together the way that I thought I would if I could display them at the museum. And then I wrote a, a prologue, and then I went back and I was like, I got to write something to explain how they tie into each other, how I got to this point. And that's kind of how the book came about.
Awesome, awesome. Now, Coffee from C is often a collection of spoken word. Now, many of us, some like prose, others like spoken word, others like plays. So, what are the things that attracted you specifically to spoken word?
Um, Before I really started sharing and writing, you would just watch people doing it or sharing. And with the book, I wanted to share my experience, although a lot of people say I've kind of gone backwards because I haven't been in front of people really sharing and going to spoken word events. But I mean, I enjoy writing, and I felt like this was the easiest way for me to share it. Um, then I decided, like, this year is kind of a decision that I'm going to start trying to get out there and do more as far as like being in the spoken word community.
Yeah, and that makes a difference. I say that's all part of who we are, in terms of authors, poets, and playwrights. Um, Now, would you share one of your poems here? Because
Oh, sure.
three of them come to mind for me now. I say this because I am a same gender loving man. Uh, Coffee is one of them. Then I think about suicide and letters to my younger self. So, could you share
Okay.
one of those? Because I know I'm
Um,
going to have some questions after you're done.
okay, so I'll share coffee since it is like the anchor poem of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Coffee, black as night, no cream, no sugar, steam rising from the endless cups he drink. At least 3 Folgers cans around the house for spitting tobacco. He rocking back and forth in his chair on the porch, watching cars drive by. Country music playing softly from the radio atop the small counter in the corner, reminiscing of the time he spent with his grandfather. Only then roads were dusty with coffee-colored dirt of a segregated Arkansas. I'd be miserable. The cans of spit disgusted me. They looked like what he drank, but smelled 1,000 times worse. The sound of the chair rocking and the slow drawl of the music usually put me to sleep. Yet I wanted nothing more than to share these moments in my own little chair. No cans of chewed tobacco in my area. These moments probably reminiscent to those he spent with his grandfather, watching cars drive by, drinking coffee, mine more milk, sweetened with pounds of sugar. On quiet days, I sit and listen to the cars that drive by, and allow my brain to be flooded with memories. Memories of when your mind started to fade, wondering if there wasn't such a likeness to my father, would you have even remembered my name? And I become bitter, like the stuff you used to drink, black, like the part of the brain that controls our lives. But bitterness does not make the memories matter any less. I prefer the taste. No sugar, no cream, black as night, coffee.
Thank you, thank you. Or in the words when you had spoken word. Okay, now I heard references to Arkansas. Tell me more.
So my grandfather that's where he's from. He's from Arkansas, and then after he's in the military, moved to Nebraska. I've never been, so I don't know much about it at all.
Mhm. Well, it sounds like say chewing tobacco. I had an
Yes,
uncle from Detroit that had those spittoons around the place when I was
it's
little.
disgusting.
Definitely. So, because you describe the bitterness. Now, when you looked at that bitterness, you look at it in terms of bitterness for him, bitterness for you, or a combination of
I
both.
I think it's a combination of both. The bitterness for me comes from the fact that like I was 11 when my grandfather started losing his memory, and like I say in the poem, I think the last time I really saw him, he thought I was my father, and he was talking to me about a fishing trip that they had gone on, and it kind of made me bitter because of the memories that I felt like I shared with them were no longer there, or if they were there, they were so far down that he wouldn't remember them. But I felt like it was kind of for him, it was kind of bitter because I'm sure there's a part of him that probably would have loved to remember those memories.
And that is true. Would you say it sounds like he had signs of dementia or
Hmm.
something like that, or memory loss? Yeah, that's happened with my father after a certain point and stuff. And though we wish we could, you know, that they would have those memories, I know it's hard for them as well. So that being said, uh, with your grandfather on that, uh, did he move from Arkansas to Omaha, or did you go down? You said you'd never been to
Yeah,
Arkansas.
I'd never been. Yeah, he moved from Arkansas to Omaha.
Mhm. Okay. And then, okay, with your grandfather and then your parents, know the dynamics on that in the poem. How did that influence your poem?
Um, I mean, like I said, I love spending time with my grandfather.
Mhm.
I don't think I ever really, like I said in the book, I think what I remember seeing my grandfather last, my mom took me to see him.
Mhm.
And I put in the book, I didn't even know if she actually remembered that. It's something I'll never forget. But I know it was something I had never spoken to my dad about until he read Coffee. And
Yeah.
that was his father. So
Mhm.
I don't know. It was hard for me to write just because, like I said, there's kind of this bitterness of like the memories of him not remembering me. But like to know that my dad is reading something that was about his dad. And there was a point where I was 11 years old and his dad thought I was him. I know I definitely feel like it was probably hard to read and see that.
Yes. Yeah, I can relate to that. There was another poem I mentioned about suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us more about suicide.
Um, I'll read it in a second. Suicide was something that when I was 10 years old, this is another thing that was really hard to share because it's something that I don't think I've ever shared with anyone, like publicly. Um, when you're younger and you feel different and people say certain things to you or make you feel a certain way, you sometimes feel like it's easier to just not be there. And so it was definitely something I considered multiple times. This poem actually stems from a time that I actually was going to attempt it. Um, Thankfully, I did it. I'm grateful that I did it because I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have experienced so many of the beautiful things I've experienced, and I wouldn't have, the family that I was scared would treat me any different had I been truthful in the beginning. I wouldn't have that love and support that I have. So I'm grateful that was something I didn't follow through with. But I felt like it was necessary to talk about because I feel like in order for you to grow and to build, you have to talk about the dark places. And that was definitely a dark place. And it sucks feeling like, or knowing, that I was 10 years old at the time, but I grew from it. I'm stronger because of it. And, I can be a voice and I can be a face for those that feel like, I'm in this dark place, but it definitely gets better.
That is true. It gets better. I'm just thinking about the Gets Better project and so, and the fact that there's still so many that need to hear that, need to hear that one, we're not alone,
Mm-hmm.
and say, and three, we get through it, and there is support out there. Okay, would you share suicide?
Know what it feels like to be in a room full of people and feel so alone. Do you understand that feeling when it's in your own home? Trying to be someone you're not so you appear to be strong, but deep down inside knowing what you're portraying is all wrong. Words that should just be words ringing true in your ears, and feelings that you feel like you shouldn't have confirm your fears. Knowing who you really are for years and years, but concealing it with smiles and lies to hold back tears. How many times do you have to be called a monster before you believe it's true? How many nights do you shed silent tears because you can't be you? Do you take your own life or suffer through? Continuing this lie, what do you do? Do you run away to cry, although it's all jokes? Or does death consume you? Is it your ray of hope? How far will you go to run from this pain, scared of the consequences, just the same? Crying in the mirror, a belt around your neck, looking for a place to take the next step. Afraid of your image, a moment of clarity within, taking your life just won't help in the end. You sit and you cry, glad you made the choice that you did, because deep in your heart, you know you have so much to give. You've only lived in 10 years, there's so much more life to live, and you have a new renewal in life, you're proud of it. Now you're able to tell your story while being truthful to yourself, knowing that your words can help someone else. Accepted by those you love the most for just being you. And if suicide is supposed to be the easy way out, why is it so hard to follow through?
Thank you, James. Thank you, James. It takes strength and takes power to share a story. And oftentimes, sometimes you say often the fear is greater
Mm-hmm.
than the reality. Now, at 10 years old, you were at that stage. So, in that, because we are grateful that you are here with us to share your story and your gifts. Now, so if I may ask, if you could share what what your process was into becoming your authentic self today from that point, if
I,
if you if you want to share it.
I feel like I still continue. I mean, I think there was a time where I still continued to try to hide behind, like, this is not who I am. I'm not gay. I'm not queer. Like, I tried to hide behind that. And then after I came out, knowing that the people that I love the most supported me for just being me. I felt like I could conquer the world. There was nothing anyone could say or do that could deter me from being my greatest self. And to this day, I have that same love and support, and I have even more of it. And it just allows me every day to wake up and know that I'm James, I can be James, and whatever it presents itself as that day, and keep moving forward. So I'm forever grateful for my support system.
Now, definitely, because we all definitely need that support because like we aren't islands. We can't go it alone. But oftentimes we think that we are islands and that nobody's gone through what we've been through, and we find out no, we're not as alone as we think we are. And so I know we put ourselves in that box. And so that third poem I was taught thinking about was Letter to My Younger Self. Because interesting enough, I thought about the fact that what kind of advice would I have given to my 17-year-old self back in 1969? Stonewall came out, before I came out, and being 71 now. So that struck a chord with me. And so tell us more.
That one was probably one of the easiest things to write. I saw something, I think I was in a writing class, and they just said, write a letter to yourself. And at first I was like, what am I going to write to myself? And as I started writing and like the words just started coming onto the page, like you feel this weight off of your shoulder, because life is going to be life, and there's going to be ups and downs through all of it. And if I could go back to myself and tell myself like, hey, we got this, we can do it, we're going to make it through it, like I would do it in a heartbeat. But not going through what I went through makes who I am today.
Oh, indeed, indeed. So before you share that, because I definitely want our readers to hear that, as those of us who are also African American and LGBTQ, what are some steps that can be taken so far as speaking that truth to power and making a positive difference today?
I feel like there's this whole narrative that you're one thing before the other, and people forget the intersectionality of being one thing and another. As a straight person, you can just navigate life freely and no one bothers you about it. No one says anything about it. As a Black person, you have a stigma. As a male, you're set up with another stigma. As a Black male, you're set up with a stigma. And then here I am, a gay person. And so I have three things against me already that society are looking like, what's going on? And I just want to navigate life showing that these three things represent who I am. Nothing is greater or less than the other. They all create me, and they're all going to be a part of who I am. I don't put one against the other or one higher than the other, because they're all what encompass who James is.
Oh, that is so true, James. So to piggyback on that, what is the way you see all the above as strengths, as superpowers?
I just feel like I said, they're all a part of who I am. And as long as I'm living my authentic true self, that's always going to be my superpower, because no one can change who I am. No one can take away from who I am, because I know who I am.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. So that being said, can you share with us?
All right, this is a letter to my younger self. Dear James, even at a young age, you could sense your own differences from your brothers, cousins, and even the boys at your school. For a long time, you tried to hide who you are or your feelings out of fear. Things will get better. There was nothing wrong with you then, like there's nothing wrong now. Don't allow anyone to tell you that there was or is. You spent many nights mad at God for it and prayed that he changed the way you felt, only to learn that who you are and who created you are one and the same, and he knows you better than you know yourself. Life has been no crystal stair. It will never be. It will sometimes be uncomfortable and difficult. There may be a time that you contemplate taking your life. Don't. Just dig into the strength and resilience you possess. There will always be people that don't understand, but don't let anyone's definition of who you should be define you. Things will get better. Don't hold on to bitterness and heartache. They do nothing but in turn make you bitter and heartless. Life is about making decisions that you aren't sure about and won't always be happy with, but make sure you use each one as a learning experience. Walk to the beat of your own drum. Everyone is not supposed to have the same path. Your path is what sets you apart from those around you. Like I said, don't let anyone define who you are. It will do nothing but make you think less of yourself. And we are worth more than money, diamonds, pearls, or all the riches in the world. We cannot be bought. We will not be owned. And when I say owned, I say that in the sense that our individuality is unmatched, that we will live outside of the chains of society and out of the box of what people or who people think you should be. Yes, you will lose jobs, you will lose friends, but you will gain knowledge and acceptance in yourself. Over anything, knowledge and acceptance of self are the absolute greatest things you will ever gain. No one can take that away from you. No one will ever be able to take that away from you. Don't even let them try. God grants no greater gift than to live and love. And living for and loving yourself is top priority. Love always, James. P.S. If you ever feel like you can't be your authentic self in any space you occupy, then that space is not a space for you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And on that, we are going to take a moment for a station break. Read it, then we will be back with James Estwick, this gifted spoken word poet.
Are you or someone you know recovering financially from the COVID-19 pandemic, the lockdown, or any other reason? If so, help is available. Findhelp.org is a site to find a wide range of resources, including food, medical care, and more. The best part is based on your zip code. Visit findhelp.org, enter your zip code and the service you need. You'll get a map directing you to the organizations that can help you. Help is waiting at findhelp.org. If you need help starting anew, findhelp.org is the site for you.
Thank you. We are back with Conversation with Al McFarlane, and I'm having an enjoyable chat with our guest poet, spoken word artist, James Estwick. Hi, James. Since you just shared, it's a letter to a 17-year-old self or to your younger self.
My younger self.
Your younger self, exactly. So when I think about, the changes you're talking about in the community, I guess in terms of not just the Black community, but I think about the LGBTQ community, because you often see that the images that are portrayed there are still predominantly white. And so one thing I would like to ask you, so as we are authors and poets of color, what is the things that we can do to really change that landscape on a broader scale?
I feel like we definitely have our own voices. I feel like it's important for us, if we feel like we don't fit in those white spaces, we create our own, and that's okay for us to create our own, or we find allies in those spaces that are going to allow us to grow ourselves in those spaces.
Yes.
I feel like as a Black queer community, we also have to not allow the stereotypes that other people have of us be a burden on us, because there are a lot of positive things that a lot of queer people do that might go unnoticed because of stereotypes.
That is so true. Because to say, since we are representative of that intersectionality, I guess one of the things is, as we share our stories one-on-one, it's changing the narrative. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Definitely. Now, there was another poem there that really strikes close to home with me, because it talks about, when the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, Philando Castile, that is just, tell us more.
That poem is called Bloom. The idea from the poem came from speaking to a friend of mine. She had painted, she's a portrait painter, and she had painted a painting. And when you see it, it's a Black man, and it looks like he has a flower in his head. And for a lot of white audiences, they would see the painting and think that it's a flower. But as a Black person and looking at what's going on in the world, you can see that he had just been shot in his head. And so we talked about the poem for a little bit, and she was doing an art show. We talked about the poem. I kind of walked away and came back in about 10 minutes and had a poem, and shared the poem with her. She shared it with her sister, who makes clothes. The next day they were on t-shirts, and I didn't know they were going to be on t-shirts. I just get to the art show and they were on t-shirts. And so that was kind of my first sharing of my work. I was really nervous about it because I had never written something so political, I feel like, and so pro-Black, I would say. And I think there was a time that I was afraid of how others would take it, especially people not of color. And then as I read the poem, like, it was never intended for them to feel comfortable in the first place. And the intention was to write something as a Black person and make them uncomfortable and see the uncomfortable truths that we live.
And that makes a difference, truly. So that being said, I loved it how it reads to hear Bloom.
Flowers will bloom where my Black body will lay. I could have shown you my beauty in so many other ways. But here I lie victim to systemic ties, and you pulled the trigger before you saw the tears in my eyes. Now I have vacant thoughts as life seeps from my pores. I wasn't even a threat to you, but whose life mattered more? Yours. Now the ground that I occupy blooms the most beautiful flowers, seeped of all my love, all of my power. Perfect stems crowned with perfect flower heads, but you only noticed my beauty after I was dead.
Powerful, mostly powerful. Now, what do you remember about that day, May 25th, 2020, when George Floyd was murdered?
I just remember getting on social media and I just refused to want to see the video. And then I ended up watching the video and it made me angry because it's 2020 and we're going through the same things that people were going through in 1960. And it's upsetting and you get upset. And I think one of the things that, like, for lack of better words, pissed me off the most is like people saying, I'm so sorry. And this, and this. It's like, but as a person, like a white person, you have a voice that at sometimes is stronger than mine. And what are you saying or what are you doing that is going to help change this narrative or change these laws or change the way that people are seen in society? But for lack of better words, I was angry. I was pissed off.
So with the whole process and said, do you feel that justice was served in that? No.
I do. And every time he appeals, I'm glad that it gets thrown out the window because he took someone's life. And whether it was intentional or not, he kneeled on someone's neck for 9 minutes. And it's inexcusable.
That is so true. Now, it's been going on 4 years since that happened. What do you see in the climate today, say here in the Twin Cities?
It's weird. It seems like a lot of the areas that were destroyed during the protests, you don't see very much construction going on or rebuilding. At least I don't feel like I have. It just kind of sucks because I feel like there haven't been any significant talks on what proper policing should look like and what proper policing in certain neighborhoods should look like. To know that there are people that are policing neighborhoods that they're unfamiliar with, or that they're unfamiliar with the people there, the environment, how to interact with them, is definitely a conversation that I feel like should be had.
That is true. That is very true. So taking the conversation just to another note, when you finished your collection, your book, how'd you celebrate?
I definitely cried. Like I said, it's been something I've been thinking about for forever. It's something that has been a dream of mine for a long time. So I definitely cried. And then after I had the physical copy in my hand, like I just stared at it. I couldn't put it down. I probably sat in it with my hand staring at it for about an hour. It was just a surreal feeling. And even now, like holding it and reading from it and knowing that these are my words and this is something that I did, like it still feels amazing.
It's true, because I learned that the first biggest experience was for a writer or a poet is first you complete the work, and then the next biggest one is holding it in your hand for the first time. There's no feeling like it. Definitely
I feel
no
like
feeling.
that even if someone buys it and like I'm taking it from my hands and putting it in theirs, it's such an amazing feeling knowing that I'm taking my words to share with someone else in a way that I never thought that I would.
That is so true, so true. And speaking of your work, because we met at the Minnesota Black Authors Expo in October. Why don't you tell me about your experiences in that milieu?
That was it was an amazing event. Like I said, I had done some art shows, but they were never geared towards literacy. And so it was definitely I felt home, like I felt complete in a space that like everyone else looks like me. They're doing the same things as me. And you get to interact and meet other people who have had this dream, the same dream that you've had forever. And I met some really amazing people, and the Minnesota Black Authors Expo has been amazing thus far, being a member. And I look forward to everything else happening, especially this month.
So true. Definitely look forward to seeing you in, say, the next October at the expo. So you have the opportunity to share more of your work. Now, one thing I want to ask you about too, when you first saw your collection exhibited, what was your experience of that?
I definitely cried. I definitely cried. I don't know. They're all happy tears, like, but I definitely, if it's there, I'm definitely gonna cry. I have books displayed at the Strive bookstore that I dropped off the other day, and I haven't gone in yet, but I know that I'm gonna go, and I'm probably gonna shed a tear because, I mean, it's a dream, like to get on Amazon and see my book, or get on Barnes and Noble online and see my book, and now I get to go to a local bookstore and my books are there. Like it's definitely an amazing feeling.
I know that's right. Yeah. There is a quote from Toni Morrison that's definitely something that resonates with me. So I'd just like to know what it means to you. And she says, if there is a story that you wish to read and it hasn't been written yet, then you must be the one to write it.
I absolutely agree. Our stories, our personal stories, are our stories, our experiences, our life experiences, are our experiences. No one can tell them better than you. And so before anyone makes up something about you, before someone creates a narrative about you, you can do that for yourself. And you can put out there what you want the world to know about you and about your story. And so everybody has a story, and only we can write them.
Oh, that is correct. And I have one other quote that's kind of stuck with me. It's from Aretha, the queen, as she had this quote that said, be your own artist and always be confident in what you're doing. How does that speak to you?
It speaks to me highly. Like I said, years ago, I was scared of my work and sharing my work. Now I sit in a place comfortably that I write in hopes of sharing the things that I want to say and my perspective, because my perspective is going to be different from anyone else's because it's my perspective. And I feel excited to share the things that I have in store and the things I've been working on. And even with my book now, having a space to be able to share the things that I've already written.
Amen. Amen. And speaking of another of your poems, you're talking about rivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at first I think Mississippi River, but it almost has a whole different meaning in your poem. Would you share that with our viewers?
Yep, definitely. So Rivers is a poem that was kind of inspired. Like I said, Langston Hughes was one of my favorite writers, and so was inspired by his poem "Negro Speaks of Rivers." And so, rivers run deep, dark and calm, violent and free. Rivers run deep with the blood of man taken from his peace. Rivers run deep with tears of sorrow and lives untold. Rivers run deep with everlasting life and life yet to unfold. Rivers run deep, reflecting the moon, mirroring the stars. Runs deep like flowing blood from open scars. Rivers run deep with promises of freedom and to be brave. Yet here I am drowning in this deep river, still a slave.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So when they say rivers run deep, okay, I see the tones of how it is a metaphor for our history as African Americans. So could you expand upon that?
Yeah, that's definitely what it is. It starts with being violently, like our ancestors being violently taken from their homes and brought to a new world, and everything that encompassed who they were stripped from them. And like I said, rivers run deep like flowing blood from an open scar. The craziness of slavery and all that, the atrocities of slavery, and those scars that, you know, still trickle to this day with systemic racism and everything going on in the world.
That is true. That is true. And now, that being said, tell us things about where you're at now, and so far as me, perhaps personally and professionally.
So I've been writing a little bit, nothing crazy. It's coming on 2 years for Coffee being out, so I'm trying to work on something just to celebrate that, because like I said, it was such a milestone for me. As far as upcoming events, I have Minnesota Black Authors Expo has the 2024 open mic night next Thursday, February 15th at Strive Bookstore downtown from 5:30 to 7:30. So I'll be there presenting some of my work. It's free to the public, so hopefully a lot of people can come out and support, especially the Black-owned bookstore. And then later this month, I'll be at the Brooklyn Park Library for the Bringing Books to Life for Black History. And I'll have a couple of minutes to talk about my book, answer some questions, and then they're going to do a giveaway of some of the author's books. And I'm just going to keep writing, and hopefully in the next year or so, I'll be working on my next collection of poetry.
Oh, do you have a theme for your next collection?
Not at all. Not at all. I'm just trying to make sense of everything I have right now and see if I can come up with a theme. I definitely would like it to be like I've played around with the idea of a healing theme, like a reflections of my healing or something of that sort. So we'll see where it takes me.
Yeah. Well, we will see. And I think about this. Now, when it comes to spoken word and poetry, what I've seen where you have derived from different situations. What's your process from the time it's in your head to the time it's out on a laptop or a piece of paper or whatever you have on hand?
I think whenever something comes to mind, I just try to jot it down like in my notes. Then I'll go and revisit and see if some of the stuff I wrote before I can put together with something else. I honestly don't have a real process. A lot of my writing comes based off of just pure emotion in the moment. I'm working on getting better at creating a process, but yeah, a lot of my writing comes purely based off of inspiration.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. I will admit that, yes, I have written the poetry and stuff, and it just is something, well, for me, it comes as a spur of the moment. It's an idea. Let me get it down. Let me get it out of my head, and then go from there. Because, as you know, I'm an author. I'm more prose than poetry, and that's an entirely different process altogether.
Yeah, I'd say one thing I definitely learned is that as a younger writer, I felt like everything had to rhyme in poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just rhyming more. I just wanted to tell a story, or I want to paint a picture that tells a story of metaphorically of something else, or just flat out tell a story with my words. And knowing that it doesn't always have to rhyme was kind of a relief.
That is so true. Now, you know that this is Black History Month, and Black History Month also includes those of us who are LGBTQ. And you think about persons like James Baldwin and Langston Hughes, Elaine Locke, County Cullen, Bruce Nugent, and others, Samuel R. Delaney, Lorraine Hansberry. What, when you look back on these authors, what are your impressions of them, and what sort of things that you draw from those who went before us, since they, we know they grew up long before we were even a consideration?
The thing with all of them, they were all pretty unapologetic about their writing and about their voice and about the things that they wanted to share. And that's something that I'm definitely trying to be, is unapologetic about the things that I want to share, because it's my story, it's my words, and I should be able to share them and say the things that I please.
Yeah, that is true. Okay, I'd like to take a moment to talk about an upcoming event that's going to be happening in South Minneapolis, and it is called the We Are Wordsmiths Community Event. Now, wordsmiths, I like that phrase, which Al McFarlane coined, so far as the gifts that we have as masters of the written word, be it in prose, poetry, or plays. This will take place on Saturday, February 24th at St. Peter's AME Church, starting from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. St. Peter's is located at 401 East 41st Street in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and we are featuring the following amazing and gifted authors: the Ms. Mercedes, T. Aaron Cisco, Shayla Michelle Reeves, James Johnson, Anthony Walsh, Tierra Caldwell, Willie Dean, and Sharon Bott-Scarth. Light refreshments will be served, and we also will be featuring handcrafted jewelry by Dee Michelle and artwork by Vaughn Larry. So it's going to be an amazing event, and Minnesota Black Authors Expo will be in attendance for this event as well. So for you in the community, come out, hear these authors, share their stories, get to meet them, and encourage you to purchase their work. Because when it comes to authors, the best way you can support them is, one, buy their work, and two, write reviews. Reviews are important to help support our authors along the way, such as those who are going to be on the event, and poets such as James, my guest here, and is definitely deeply appreciated. So now, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's another poem that you have in your collection.
Yeah, it's called Watch the World Burn.
Please share. Please share.
This was kind of like the middle, kind of like the transition and from my personal life until like the world. Some people look at it with envy, jealousy, a twinkle in the eye. Some merely adore it. Some men would rather die. I'd rather watch it with you and wait for the Savior to return. So sit back with me, darling, and watch the world burn. Fires fueled by hatred and incurable, insatiable greed, a lack of respect for fellow man, a lack of hope for those in need. Some would rather try to own it than share in the beauty that it bears. Some would rather try to control it as a way to subside their fears. See, I'd rather yearn, a longing that one would one day have a cure. So I'll just sit back and watch the world burn. My appetite for hope is one that couldn't be understood. My optimism for a peaceful life is sometimes guarded unlike it should. I only pray for the things I need. I work hard for the things that I can. I hope for better days and understanding of man. I think of bringing in lives, but always with so much concern. because I never want them to experience this life. I'm way too afraid of them watching the world burn.
Thank you. Thank you, James. So, what was going on at the time that you wrote this poem?
This was definitely during 2020, during the protests, and literally watching the city burn and watching the backlash or the negative comments that people make about buildings and material possessions, and not the lives that are affected by everything going on. And that was kind of my way of like trying to explain it to myself as well. It's like some people want to own everything in the world, and they miss out on the beauty of everything that's already there for us.
Yes, and that's like I said, it's a sad testimony on the state of affairs. Yeah, encountering on that, what is your hope so far as the community, the diaspora, and say for what's going on in the world? What would be your hopes and dreams?
I really hope that people start to see the humanity, that we are all human. Yes, we are different colors, we're different races. But at the end of the day, we're all humans. I think that within the Black community, there's so much division in who we are and how we represent ourselves as well. And as a collective, it would be nice to see people realizing that we're all kind of fighting the same struggle. And if we can get on one accord, realizing that we're fighting the same struggle, it might be able to help build us in a way unimaginable.
True. So, how would you see going about bridging those divisions?
Conversations are always an amazing thing. Like I said, writing has always been my go-to with trying to explain my emotions and my expressing how I feel. So I definitely want my writing to be a reflection of that, because I mean, I am more than just Black. I'm gay. I'm a male. Like I'm more than just that. And so I want my writing to be a reflection of that.
Exactly. That's, I know, because that's where I was at when I first started my novels, to say, hey, I am all of these things. And I remember what it was like when there were no, shall we say, safe spaces at the time, or as well as not seeing persons who looked like me reflected in the books that I read.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like with, say, Gandhi said it, be the change you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
And it will show up around you. Well, I have definitely enjoyed our talk. I definitely appreciate the gift that you are of the spoken word.
Thank you.
So, do you have any closing remarks?
If anyone wants to purchase my book, it's no diss to Amazon, but Amazon is taking a lot of my money. So if you would like to purchase a book, I would love if you would reach out to me on my Instagram. My handle on Instagram is Spoken by James. Reach out to me there. We can coordinate how to get the book to you. Like I said, I have the open mic night next Thursday at Strive Bookstore. I'll be at Brooklyn Park Library on the 24th. And surprisingly, I've never really done spoken word, but I'm actually working on planning my own spoken word event next month. So whenever I have details, if you follow me on Instagram, I'll make sure I share those and let everybody know.
That's great. Because say you come on out and we support James in his spoken word. Because hey, Black History Month is here, and we have so many artists, writers, poets, all around the Twin Cities area. It's often said that, hey, some people thought that, there were no Black authors or anything here in Minnesota. Well, guess what? We are.
Right here.
So, that being said, I just want to thank you for being a guest here on
Thank you for
Conversations
having
with
me.
Al McFarlane. It's been a joy, and it has been a pleasure. So, viewers, they come out and support our guests. James, he is a awesome poet and spoken word person. He has a powerful story to share. And so this is W.D. Foster Graham saying thank you for viewing in, and we'll see you next go round.
All right. Thank you.